Feels like church. Everyone's quiet. Reverend Michael. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Crummer Graduate School of Business at Rollins College. And a special welcome to all the folks who are through that little camera back there and going through all the little tubes and wires on the internet. We are streaming live, so we do know that we have alumni and friends from around the world who are joining us tonight. My name is Michael Kazazis. I am Director of Business Development and Partner Relations here at Crummer. And I am also a proud alumnus, EMBA 24, the executive program. Tonight's Business in Action event will be a conversation hosted by Crummer School Dean, Dr. Deborah Crown, to discuss the dynamics of success in business today. And our special guest this evening is Joie Chitwood, Executive VP and COO of International Speedway Corporation. Events like this are made possible through support from Central Florida business community. And tonight's event is generously sponsored by Commerce National Bank and Trust, which is led by Chairman and CEO, Crummer alumnus Guy Collado, MBA class of 1971. Guy was unable to join us tonight, but in his place, we have Ray Collado, President, and I invite you to learn more about this wonderful team at Commerce National Bank and Trust by visiting them at their office on 1201 South Orlando Avenue here in Winter Park. And please join me in thanking them for their generous support tonight. Okay, so for those of you who have not yet met Dean Crown, the Crummer School was pleased to welcome her back in July of this year. And we lured her from Honolulu, Hawaii, one tropical paradise, all the way over here to another tropical paradise in Winter Park, Florida. I kind of like this paradise. Dean Crown has a rich background in leadership, strategic visioning, and executing plans that take business schools to the next level. Most recently, Dr. Crown was Dean and a Professor of Strategic Leadership at the College of Business at Hawaii Pacific University, and that's the largest private university in Hawaii. Prior to that, she led the Lucas Graduate School of Business at San Jose State University, where she worked with companies in Silicon Valley to develop academic programs that integrated science, technology, and business. Prior to that, Dean Crown also worked at Ohio University, where she built and led programs that had MBA and MBA Masters of Sport students work with over 500 businesses and entrepreneurs annually with a focus on managing rapid growth. Interestingly, Dr. Crown was recruited to her first academic position within the University of Alabama's College of Business because of her work with professional and collegiate sport. Dr. Crown's research focused on the industry of sport and the key elements that lead to long-term sustained performance focused mainly on professional and collegiate football, baseball, and basketball. Her interest in the industry of sport continues today, making tonight's conversation a perfect fit for her experience. So now I turn the mic over to Dean Crown to introduce our featured speaker, Mr. Joie Chitwood.
Oh, no, that's me. Oh, thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. And I do have my own mic here, so we'll go. I've been looking forward to this evening for a number of reasons, and one is because Joie Chitwood is recognized within the sports industry as a phenomenal leader. And he is someone who made an impact so rapidly that he was recognized with a 40 under 40 award while he was at Indianapolis, and quickly followed it with a national recognition of 40 under 40. And that is a very coveted award. Mike shared with you that Mr. Chitwood is EVP and COO of the International Speedway Corp. In this role, he's responsible for the leadership, the management, the oversight of all of ISC's operations. And you can see here that while we're familiar, very familiar locally with Daytona, that there is a rich number of facilities around the country. And Prior to being appointed as EVP and COO of International Speedway, he was the president of the Daytona Speedway, and one of his responsibilities while he was the president was to lead what has been recognized as a transformation within the motorsports industry, and it's entitled, they even gave it a name. I mean, this is when you know your transformations are recognized when they name it, the Daytona Rising Project. And we're fortunate to have a little video. So Mike, can you cue that up? There's more coming. There is. The transition's a little slow. The anticipation builds.
Joey, here we are. The final touches being placed on this $400 million project. Can you take us back to the beginning and how this whole thing got started?
It's hard to believe 2.5 years of construction, but people don't realize it was about 12 to 16 months in planning. Just getting the approvals done, the design, what did we want to do to Daytona? And anytime you touch Daytona, a lot of people have opinions. This is the flagship brand of our company. You can think about the history and the heritage. All the legends of our sport made their name out on that racetrack. So if we were to make any changes, we had to make sure all the right people signed off. And luckily we got that approval. And I will tell you, the France family has been 100% behind this project from day one. And then we had to go to work.
What impresses me most about this project, you guys have continued on putting on events the magnitude of the Daytona 500 while going through the construction process.
Let me tell you something, there's enough pressure and stress on the Daytona 500. Let's have some construction going on at the same time. So for us, unique challenge. We learned a lot, but I will tell you, this is a perfect mix. That racetrack hasn't changed. That's the same place, same location, same angle that Lee Petty crossed that start-finish line in 1959 for that first win. We just renovated all the amenities and opportunities on the outside of the track. Wider, more comfortable seats, better sight lines. When you think about it, 40 escalators, 17 elevators. We made sure we over-indexed on anything that had to do with vertical transportation. We can get you up and down this property faster than we ever could. We're living up to that goal of being the world's first and only motorsports stadium. The architectural skin on the outside, the massive entrance gates. You can see we've got partners now on those gates, all the amenities in the concourses. We've truly changed the way fans would experience the Daytona International Speedway.
what doors does this project open to change the way we think of Daytona International Speedway?
Well, it all starts with being the world center of racing, but ultimately the goal should be the world center of entertainment. What else can we do with this property now that we have a property that we can compete with others? The fact that in the early 70s they played football on the ball field, I'm not sure many people talk about football games out here in the 70s, but it's been done before, so it could happen in the future.
How does what we see here today compare to the ideas that you put on the board day one in that first meeting?
You know, it's always amazing when the designers come up with this great creative. Oh, that looks wonderful. Will it show up like that? Is that really how it's going to be? And I will tell you, 99%, it's exactly like we thought it would be. One of the areas that was really important to us was hospitality. We built an entire hospitality level inside the new stadium, can entertain up to 4,800 people. Made sure we got that experience just right. If this is the biggest event on the calendar, we want to make sure that those C-level executives are entertained the right way.
February 21st, the Daytona 500. When they cross the start-finish line for the final time and take the checkered flag, what's that moment going to be like for you?
You know, it'll be difficult to put it all together. I think we always want to be in the center of something unique. And this project has truly been unique. The chance to walk in Big Bill's footsteps and really create this new experience. And I think our goal of being the world's first and only motorsports stadium was really living up to Big Bill France's legacy and his vision that he had in 1959.
Any big project has a couple of questions we always ask. Is it on time? Is it on budget? How are we in those areas?
We are on budget. We are on schedule, and more importantly, the France family is as excited today as they were when we greenlit the project 2.5 years ago. And to me, that means we rang the bell. We hit all the notes. We did everything that we needed to make sure they had confidence in what we were doing. But at the end of the day, it's going to be those fans that renewed the tickets, smiles on their faces, and tell us how great it was.
The place looks awesome. Thanks for having us in, and best of luck and congratulations as well.
Thank you very much.
So as you see, that's an amazingly impressive project. And in addition to transforming sport and entertainment, really it's already we can see the economic impact that you've brought to the region, and really with the potential for economic impact for years to come. So thank you. Also, congratulations. Those of you that follow Sports Business Journal, you will know that the facility was recently named as the Sports Facility of the Year for 2016. So congrats, an amazing. Now, I also want to share that Crummer has a direct connection with the project, as a Crummer alum was the chief structural engineer with his firm leading the structural design work for the project. So now when you see the Daytona Speedway, in addition to thinking of Mr. Chitwood, please also think of Crummer. Okay, there's my soft plug as dean. I have to kind of mark it. It's in my job description. Joey also holds a BA in finance from the University of Florida, an MBA from the University of South Florida, and he studied at Cambridge University in England as well. And if all of this is not impressive enough, Mr. Chitwood also has another item in his background that is definitely unique. He's shaking his head. He does not want me to say it. I'll just say it quickly. So many of you might recognize the Chitwood family name beyond even Joey's accomplishments in the ISC. That's because beginning at only 5 years old, is that accurate? Okay, the mother in me is going 5 years old. He was an integral part of his family's entertainment business, the well-known Chitwood Thrill Show. And where in addition to working as a stuntman, he became a specialist in precision driving. So he understands motorsports as a business person and also as a participant. Now, again, doesn't surprise us that he does more. He's also active within the local community, and we're thrilled that you are also active in education. And we found out that through his benevolence, he was lured and he took the responsibility of being a board member here locally at Trinity Prep Academy. Please join me in welcoming Joie Chitwood.
Thank you. Thank you so much. have to tell you, the project was so all-consuming, and to sit back now and have a new role and watch that video again, you know, seeing it while we were doing it, but now to kind of have a different responsibility, it's amazing what the team at Daytona was able to do over the 2.5 years. And I don't think anyone can understand what it's like to actually operate a venue while you're building on it at the same time, and the communication and just the unique emphasis of it. But again, it's almost, well, as you can see, I don't do much camera work anymore, so now you see the beard and the hair, so I'm not really on my game anymore. So I might be a little rusty in our conversation because I've tossed the baton, so now I'm a corporate executive trying to manage 12 properties, all that would like us to spend the same amount of resources on their property that we did in Daytona. So there's a little bit of politicking and a little bit of things going on, but we have a great company, we have a great footprint across the United States. And I have to tell you, it really started with Big Bill France way back in the day. You know, you think about this individual and his vision for what he envisioned motorsports to be. Moves from Washington, D.C. down to Florida and becomes a promoter of beach racing in Florida. Anybody know why beach racing was such a big deal in Florida? Think about when the automobile was created. There weren't any highways, there weren't streets, there weren't stoplights. You needed a flat place to drive a vehicle to show everyone that it worked. So of course, what happens when you add the second vehicle? You start racing, but really for Daytona, it was land speed records. So up until the 30s, they were doing land speed records. They actually went 275 miles per hour on the beaches of Daytona back in the 30s. Wow. Not something I would want to do, even being a stuntman back in the day. And so when they realized that was probably a little unsafe and it moved out to Salt Lake or the Salt Flats, they kept the racing going. So here Big Bill is racing or doing the promotion of racing on the beaches, but has this vision of the Daytona International Speedway. People told him, no way. Why would you do that? You have something that works, it's popular. Who would actually want to see NASCAR on high banks? Back then, NASCAR wasn't even the second most popular form of motorsports in this country, maybe third, maybe fourth. Big cars or Indy cars were the most popular form of motorsports. So he forged ahead and did it anyways. And when you think about it, back then, you all know what it takes to build things, right? It takes capital, takes equipment, labor, concrete, you name it, but it took more than that. Determination, vision, imagination. He imagined something bigger, faster, more exciting than anything that had been built to date. And of course, imagination fuels desire. Desire is what helps you get through all those naysayers who say, you can't do this, it's not gonna work. And so our team really kind of reharnessed that imagination. We think we reimagined this American icon, and we thought we were walking in his footsteps because we were visioning something different, a motorsports stadium. No one else had ever done that. So we really felt like we were living that brand. We were doing something special. And if you're the flagship brand of your property, you have to set the tone for everyone. And so for us as a team, we were as excited about anything. And were there some sleepless nights? Yes. Stressful nights? Yep. There were probably some tears in there too. But at the end of the day, to be part of something that special, to have the trust of the France family, and you have this flagship brand, and we're kind of giving it a little bit of a spin for the next 50 years, I would tell you, I think every team member that got to be part of it says it was worth it. Would they do it again? Yeah, they would. But it was just such a special moment, and the reaction has been phenomenal. And to be in New York City and to receive that Sports Facility of the Year when you're with all these stick and ball sports, right? NBA, NFL, MLB, it sure was nice for motorsports to walk away with a very special award that night. And it just shows that we did something very special and to get the recognition. You know, I think motorsports is just always looked at a little differently than stick and ball, even the way we reference stick and ball versus motorsports. So it was nice in that forum to really get honored and do something special.
You mentioned earlier how challenging it was to take the vision, begin the execution of that while you're still operating the facility. What were some of the other challenges you found in the execution of that?
It's amazing when you think about anything that's 2.5 years long.
True.
And so we used a phrase, and one of our designers, or actually the gentleman in charge of our design and development wing, talked about optimism bias, right? Which means stuff is going to go wrong. It's how you handle it that proves your character. And so we can't think that it's going to go well. We had challenges with FAA being so close to an airport, and I'll share an interesting story. So from day one. So we talk about phases of a project, right? And so we believe there are 5 or 6 phases of a project. Phase 1 is enthusiasm, right? Excitement, it's going to be great. Phase 2 immediately is panic. What have we gotten ourselves into? Oh my gosh. Phase 3 is hunt for the innocent, right? Okay, who did this to us? Or hunt for the guilty, right? Who did this to us? Phase 4, punishment for the guilty or the innocent, what do you want to say? But we have to blame someone. And then ultimately, at the end of the day, the last phase is praise for the uninvolved, right? Those that never thought it would happen, they get the praise at the end. And so we kind of have those phases, but literally, we get approval from the FAA, we get a letter that says you're approved. Because you're so close to the airport, we had to deal with flight restrictions, radio interference, all those things. We go to the board of directors, we get approval for the largest project in our company's history, $400 million. And we have never come to them with that big of an ask. And within a week, we got a letter from the FAA rescinding our approval. Can't build the grandstands as high, it causes interference, and literally panic sets in. So within 1 week, I mean, we haven't even put a shovel in the ground yet, and we're already dealing with something. And so obviously, government, bureaucracy, a unique challenge. The team did a great job, we were able to get involved, but it took a lot of time to fix that. So from day one, something out of our control caused us challenge. I will share another story that was interesting. We're dealing with a 50-year-old property. We're not really sure what's underneath that property. There's no as-built that are existing from 1959, and so a structural engineer would know that. So one of the challenges is we had to put 2,800 35-foot deep pylons in the ground to support the stadium. So the risk of what would you uncover at 35-foot deep under the Daytona International Speedway? You worry about a couple things, right? Maybe a species that's indigenous to Florida that might cause us to halt the project. Maybe there's some artifacts or things that are unique. So really from day one, the stress started on the things that could slow us down. We only had one opportunity during the year to start the project, and you had to start immediately after the July race. If you couldn't do it within those 3 weeks, based on the way the schedule played out with construction, you'd have to delay a full year because we couldn't segment the grandstands and what would be open and the partial open and what's closed to fit with an opening in the beginning of a new year, meaning January of a new year. So literally, we were stressing just to get the project approved, get groundbreaking going, because if we would miss July of any year, you delay a full year. And for all of us in that kind of business, the expenses just go up. Everything changes at that point. Once it's approved, you've got to get going. I will say one of the interesting challenges is great creative. What a great video in terms of the changing of the stadium. But back then, trying to explain to people what we were doing. You know, we're building a motorsports stadium. Well, what's that? So we were changing this paradigm, and to get people to understand how different, how unique, how significant it was. What you don't see from that is that stadium is close to a mile long. 40 escalators, 17 elevators. The fact that it's a mile long, we had to deal with the curvature of the earth over that distance, which is 7 inches. The amount of steel put in that project represents 1% of the annual US output of steel. So from a modern marble perspective, and I have to give credit to our designers, Rossetti and Barton Mallow. They were with us every step of the way. We all knew what we were getting into, but what a massive undertaking. And oh, by the way, you know, in a couple months, you've got to clean up and get out of the way because we're going to host a race. And so this back and forth between operations and construction, everybody understood. Doesn't mean it made it any easier, but I could point to examples along the way of, okay, that's not right. How do we fix that? What do we do? And the team, again, responded well. But I think it's one of those moments where everyone knew we were in such a special moment that we weren't going to let anything get in the way. We were going to succeed. And I think when you can, everybody unified behind that message, it might not make it easier, but it makes it possible.
Right. One of the things that you mentioned earlier, and is also in the video, is that you're creating this experience. And if you look at the following, you have multiple generations who attend. So now you've got to create an experience that is a multi-generational experience. How did you do that? What did you learn? What might you do differently?
You know, great question. So I'd back up and say in our sport, I think NASCAR has relied on the patriarch of a family to be our best sales agent. You know, what NASCAR events had become was almost like an extended family reunion or a vacation. And that patriarch pulled in uncles and nieces and nephews, and they gathered at a sporting event. But as times change, you start to find out that households in America aren't the same as 20 years ago. And there are a lot of single parent households, and the stress of that creates it very challenging to kind of create these family gatherings at sporting events. So we were starting to see that challenge as it relates to the introduction of our property, or really our sport, to the next generation of fans. I think one of the things that really caught our attention, and I would tell you, if this were 5 years ago, that would not look like it does today with all the newness. And that was, right now, people go to social events that include sports. And I think that's a pretty fair argument. And so we don't really go to soccer, we don't go to football, we don't go to races, we go to social events, we go to congregate, we go to be seen, we go to update, we want to take photos, we want to tweet, we want to share with everyone our experience. We've become really focused on that. So as you see all of our social spaces, the fact the entire property is wired, there's Wi-Fi over a mile long. I mean, there are things that we were able to accomplish that I'm not sure was possible, but knowing that's the experience that fans want, but also the experience that younger people want when they go to an event. Because they want to be able to talk, they want to be able to communicate, what do you mean I can't use my mobile device? Oh, I'm not going to go to that event. That mobile device has become so important. So how do we kind of tie that into the overall experience? Something else that we did was something called mobile rewards, where you actually could check in and use your mobile device. And what we find is people are really interested in what I would almost consider checking the box. When they go to an event, they want to say they did everything. So creating mobile stations where you check in with your mobile device at all parts of the property with a chance to win things. You know, if you go to all of them, you get a chance to go to Victory Lane, or you win a tchotchke, you win this. But it's almost a little bit of, almost like a treasure hunt. And what we find is that's appealing to the youth. They want to be able to say that they did everything, they've checked that box. So along the way with this property, and each injector, each partner did a great job of kind of creating that aspect. It's not easy. Believe me, there's a lot of opinions on how to do it. There are a lot of right answers. There's answers that maybe don't fit the project, but I think we're able to really capture the essence of the social experience in with what we call the core fan. You don't want to alienate the core fan as you try and attract the new fan. And I think any sport would tell you that. Your core fan got you to where you are. Yes, we want to grow, we want to get bigger, and you have to attract a new fan, but you can't alienate your core along the way. I think that's an interesting challenge for NASCAR, especially with this patriarch of a family being your sales agent, and they're not around anymore. So you don't have that ability. Again, it's a balancing act, and I was just at Talladega, which is probably an event for us that is truly the most core because of that gathering area. We'll camp about 25,000 people on property, but it's that extended vacation, it's that gathering of friends and family, so they still cling to that as their best sales opportunity, which works. But again, for us, we have to look to the future. Big Bill had that vision back in the early or late 50s. I think we did a good job of setting the tone for the next 50. I'm not planning on being here in 50 years. I don't know who will be at that point, but good luck, and I have no idea what challenges they might experience in staging sporting events then. Who knows if it's virtual reality? Who knows if it's driverless cars? I don't know at that point, but I'm sure there'll be some unique challenges for the Speedway in 50 years from now.
So, and with that, so you've already given us kind of how you use even some data to inspire. How else has big data, data analytics made its way into, and even not just Daytona?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think probably it's interesting when you think about the way we go to market and how we look at our business. And I think all of us used to be in a day where the phone would ring and you'd pick it up and you got to sell a ticket. But now it's understanding who consumes, what do they consume, and why do they consume. I think one of the keys for us is we have an agency relationship that does all of our media opportunities here in the state of Florida. And we've reached the point where we pipe in live ticket information to our agency who can actually adjust our digital spend on the fly. If we find that our digital spend in this zip code is working, we'll pull dollars immediately from others into that space. So the fact that we now are reacting in a minute's notice to the market conditions and the business, that is so foreign for us. First off, that we would share our ticket data with someone outside of our company, but then we're sharing it with our agency and our partner that can make decisions immediately on how we're in the marketplace. I think for us, that's really interesting. We never thought we would do things like that, or we would actually go to market that way. Yes, you have your traditional spend. I mean, I don't think the world of not buying TVs out there yet, but understanding that in the digital space, it's a chance to speak one-to-one to a customer and to track them and really understand who they are. For us, I think that's a big challenge and a departure from who we are and what we do. People always talk about, and maybe we're not as up to speed as the stick and ball sports. You know, we're a little bit different, but I will tell you in this space, I think our data, knowing our customer, even the example I'm sharing with you about knowing that our patriarch was our best sales agent, we've really gone deep into that and peeled back that onion to understand. And I was so proud that Daytona, again, no different than Daytona Rising, led the charge of creating this unique relationship with an agency to share real information, live information, and adjust your spend. And again, I'm sure my marketing team could speak a lot more detail, but again, just the concept. And so when we go upstream, and I share that with a board of directors or committees like that, I think it really impresses upon them, we're on it. The one thing I always talk to our team about in all these unique business challenges, and we're all going to have them, you know, it's all cyclical, sports up, down, you never know, is providing management the confidence that we're doing our job. And so understanding the customer, having a unique relationship with an agency, being nimble, I mean, we have to be able to react immediately. That just shows management, you've got the right team, doing the right job, protecting the right assets. And I'm really proud of that because a lot of times it used to be, I already put the spend in, so I already bought the order, so we can't really change. The billboards are the billboards, you know, the TV's the TV, and you know, maybe it's gonna get a fan to show up. So I think that just shows that we are adapting to the current times and really being able to speak to our customer one-on-one now, which I think from a NASCAR perspective is great. NASCAR fans are as passionate or more passionate than any other sports fan out there. They just don't want to wear the colors of the driver that they support. They want to make sure that they tell you who they root against. And I think that's something interesting for us. We appreciate that. We need that kind of passion. Now, I have to tell you, sometimes that passion for our sport can be challenging when you want to adjust or renovate or reimagine a Daytona International Speedway, because so many people have so many great memories of the property that you change something. Well, that's not how I remember it. I got to experience that. Why would you change that? And I'd love to show you a picture. I had a little bit of fun when I was named the president of the Daytona International Speedway 6 years ago, give or take. And that was, of course, you have to go do some shots because they want to put your picture on some things. My father, up until this past year, owned seats at the Daytona 500 since I was a teenager in high school when I lived in Tampa, Florida. And so he owned, I think it was about 24 seats, front row. And I used to skip school. And back then it was the Twin 125s. Okay, now, you know, we've changed names along the way. But I used to come here as a fan. And I'd have my cooler and I'd sit in that front row. And I don't know if I enjoyed the race more than skipping school, but it was just nice to be there, right? And so when I did the first photo of my new opportunity, I sat in my dad's seat. Oh. And so we have this great photo, but people don't know that. It's kind of an inside story. But I say that because I think that helped me understand what was important in this reimagining. Because my dad was buying tickets. My dad is in his 70s. My dad would tell me, you know, Joey, it's tough to go to that event. It's tough to walk upstairs. It's tough to get around this property. So you have this core, as great as we like social, this core we can't alienate. And this core needs to be able to move up and down that property easier. So hence the 40 escalators and 17 elevators. And so I think we did a great job of making sure we listened to the entire fan base. And for me, my family has been investing in Daytona for a long time. I've got a fan, dad, customer who gives me input that I think is pretty relevant. And I like the fact that I can say, well, you know, when I used to go here, this was important. This made my experience better. And so I think that gave me an appreciation for what our fans were saying. We did great focus groups, all right? You get behind the glass mirror and you've got a moderator talking to your fans, and very interesting in terms of either not wanting it to look too modern, wanting it to look the same, or this is important. We had one customer, an older gentleman, you could tell he was very, almost upset right from the get-go. Kind of not sure, so the moderator was trying to pull some things out of him. Wasn't really sure if he was mad at the sport, mad at us, and kind of said, well, I know what you guys are doing. Well, okay, what are we doing? You're just going to use this so you can take away the last great American freedom. Oh my goodness, well, what would that be? We're just going to rebuild Daytona. I'm not sure. Well, you're going to use this so you can take away our ability to bring coolers in the gate. It's like, whoa, time out. We get what a NASCAR fan likes. Coolers are still allowed. But it shows you the passion that they have and what's important to them. And I think for our perspective, I think our sport has done a really good job of listening to that fan and trying to make sure that we do things that maybe other sports don't do. Like you can bring your cooler in. Oh my goodness. The interaction with drivers. The fact that we can get you down on that ball field before the start of a race next to the drivers for intros. Again, we've made it very accessible. And I think that's one of the great things about NASCAR that separates us from so many other sports out there.
Well, and it's interesting. So we all learned that is the last American freedom. So we have that. And what's something, when we were talking earlier, it's people have illusions about working in sport that somehow this is not a business. Can you share some of the myths that you come across about working in the sports industry?
So for the record, I'm in sports and I've been doing this a long time. I don't get to sit in the front row. Okay, I don't get autographs. I'm not best friends with the drivers. It's interesting. Our business is tougher than a regular business. Our hours are a little bit different. We work a lot of nights. We work a lot of weekends. We work on holidays. We're there at our property, could be 20 hours of the day, yet we don't get to enjoy the elements that our fans do. I very rarely get to watch a race. I get to watch about this much because I'm out there trying to make sure everything's happening according to plan. You kind of make your way through the property, checking on things. Think about it this way. If you're a company with us and you're entertaining your best customers, you're doing that one day at the Daytona 500. I can't make that up for you the next day or Tuesday. Maybe if we're in baseball or football, come back next game and I'll, if we screw something up. No, I've got to make sure we do this right the first time. You don't want to wait a year for a make good. So the pressure to get everything right that first time, it's pretty significant. And if you're a vendor or a company who's been with us for a while and you're investing with us, again, you're probably stressed as well because this is your one big entertainment opportunity. So what I find is I think people just believe that we get to hang out with the athletes, that we get the best seat in the house, that we get to walk around. Maybe if you're the owner, in the sport, but really not the folks that have to manage. I think that's probably the biggest disconnect with some of the younger folks out there. And I had a chance to speak to a great group of Rollins MBA students earlier, and I used a great example for them, which is not just sports, but everything. So 50 students in there, and I asked, so how many of you are going to be in sales? And so we had one student raise his hand. And I said, well, you guys all need to raise your hands. Because everyone is in sales. You're in sales every day of your life from here on out. You may not be picking up the phone and cold calling someone, but you'll be selling yourself to your coworkers, to your boss, to others in the industry. You might be selling confidence. You could be selling a product, but at some point we're all expected through our own network to build a book of business. That's what we do. I think what people don't realize in sports, that's how you're gonna get in. Right. That is the first layer. That we're going to find out if you can actually sell. And it could be calling fans. It could be cold calling, all those elements. And if you can break through that, then there's opportunities. I think the sports, there are days, I think we all would say, boy, it'd be nice to have a bit of a 9 to 5 and maybe a couple weekends off here and there. But what I love about the sport we're in is waving that checkered flag and there's that closure of an event. You're crowning a winner. You've finished an event. You can now focus on the next year or the next event. I like that element to what we do. There's something about a winner of an event and then moving on to the next opportunity. Our team talked about how do you really have closure with a Daytona Rising, and I'm not really sure we've done it yet because we really transitioned from sports cars to stock cars to motorcycles, and then it's fixing the things that didn't work so you're ready for July. It was almost never ending. But it's interesting almost watching this helping provide a little bit of closure that we accomplished something. I told our team, and I'm probably the worst one about it, is live in the moment. Enjoy what's happening right now because who knows if you'll get this opportunity again. You're part of something special. This is truly history in our sport, but I don't know if I even took my own advice at that point because you're so worried about doing it right. But again, watching it, I get excited, and I really get excited about the team that we had. And asking them to first off, the Daytona team is one of the best in the business. You look at the events that they run, the revenue we generate for the company, just the amount, the volume of activity. Then so to layer this on top of it. So not only do we drive the most value for ISC as a public company, let's throw a $400 million construction project on top of it, and you have to manage both. That team stepped up to the plate, and if there's a team that said we'll do more than what's asked, it was the Daytona International Speedway team. It truly was special.
That's excellent. Well, we want to make sure that we give the audience an opportunity to ask your questions. I think, Dawn, you've got a microphone just to make sure the people that are beaming in can hear your question as well.
Thank you. First off, I want to congratulate you and thank you for the great notes that you've been sharing with us. I'm a little bit curious as a past student and a professor to be. So when we think about the students that we're teaching and trying to prepare for the future, as someone who's been in business for quite some time, how do you see us, professors, do a better job to get students ready for these opportunities? And the second part of the question, how do you want students to get themselves prepared to be the best asset for you? Because I think we all believe that it's not about the financial asset we have, but it takes people to make those dreams a reality.
First off, what a fabulous question. And I enjoy speaking to younger people and the chance to speak to the MBA students about what great opportunities are in front of them. And it's really what they want to do and the things they can make from it. And so I think from that perspective, you think about the challenges in the business world and trying to help them understand that, well, it's not just about getting a grade at whatever university they're at. And so why do they think today that being comfortable with not an A, I'll leave it at that, is okay? Because that's not going to work in the real world. We're going to expect A all the time. We want more, we want you early, we want you late, we want you to be invested in it. And so I worry sometimes on really flipping the switch. And so are they prepared, meaning the commitment it takes for excellence, because we're going to ask for that when you get out of college. And so I think from the perspective of being faculty, and I think this is a good word, which is to be demanding. We expect the best, and we should expect it at all levels, at high school, in college. I mean, what's coming in terms of you will be responsible for your own destiny? Are you prepared for that? And so I think we should expect more. And I have a 15-year-old, so if he were here, he would echo that statement. You know, he is challenged with me sometimes because I expect more from him, but I want him prepared for what's out there. The things I talked about today, understanding what hard work is about, understanding about competition, understanding that, you know, being able to communicate, public speaking. I'm sure you would all agree with me, been around people that are unbelievably smart, who've done things that are phenomenal. But if they can't communicate those successes, it's very challenging to buy in. And yet, I've been around people who can tell me a story and they catch my attention and I'm hooked. And I mean, there's some basics to that. Just being able to communicate, have an opinion, support it with fact, be ready to participate. And I also share with them, and I'm sure that we would agree, this doesn't happen at Rollins, this would happen at other universities. But when you break down a segment of a class, there's a small group in that class that show up a little bit late, leave a little bit early. They think no one is paying attention. They think they can get by. We know who you are within 3 hours of that first day. And the minute we know, we shift all of the energy, focus, and resources to the candidates or the people that we can trust to do the job. Yet, sometimes people think they're really smarter than everyone else, but they don't realize we know that. And there's so many great candidates out there for opportunity, and there are few opportunities. And once we find those that step up to the plate, hard work and honest mistakes will get you through life. But you got to have that hard work to be part of it. And so the chance to speak to the students today, but it was fantastic because I don't think I shared anything that was earth-shattering, but we hire interns all the time. I meet them, I see them, and there are interns for us that have gotten full-time jobs, and I can tell you exactly why. And they take on more. You know, I believe, I've yet to find anybody that we can max out their capacity, okay? And we're gonna give people more and more because we trust them to get it done, and they'll find a way to get it done. And it's okay if they ask for a little assistance, but when we find someone who's probably not up to snuff, they have a lot of time on their hands. Because we, employers, don't have time to worry about that anymore. There's a lot of quality out there. So I think being demanding of them, expecting the best, and I would hope that they would want to give the best. And it's not just because of this opportunity they're going to give it. So I always talk about this. I think it's a good story. So I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to be perfect. I think that's a great goal, right? Now, I will tell you, Vince Lombardi, right? We all know who Vince Lombardi is, legendary head coach of the Green Bay Packers. So in training camp with the Packers, he would talk about that. And he would actually tell the team, you know, gentlemen, we're going to strive for perfection. Although unattainable, we'll catch excellence along the way. I think that's a reasonable goal. There's nothing wrong with that. Also, if anyone was going to go have a medical procedure, would you want your doctor that day to say, you know, I'm not going to be perfect today. I'm going to give it a B today, you know? How about if you're going to fly on a plane? Would you want the aircraft mechanic that day to go, I'm just not feeling it today. I'm going to kind of mail it in. And I don't think there's anything wrong with expecting that or having that as a goal. I think that's really important. And I think we've all been in business. We all know what the world is like. And it's tough for some folks to understand that. But boy, how impressive it is when you find those candidates and those individuals who get it, who give you everything that you want and want more. I am so excited when we have people that want more, that give me everything I got, and boy, we'll give them as much work as they can ask for. And so I think that for me, and I'd love to spend another hour with you and chat about that, and we could go through the talk I gave, and I know there are some of the students here. I'm just so excited when I talk to young people about them kind of with their destiny in front of them, and it's all up to them. They get to choose their path. They get to create their future. The best way to predict the future is to create it. Absolutely. What a great opportunity. So, sorry, I'm getting excited. I'm getting sidetracked. I just think there's so many opportunities out there. And our world today, there's so many more entrepreneurial opportunities. You know, with the landscape that's out there, digital technology, digital, social. I mean, who knows what people can do or be? But boy, I'd even be excited to go back and think about that again as a younger person. I've made my path in the motorsports business, and I'm really excited about it. But again, when I see young people, when I look at my 15-year-old son, and I think to myself, wow, the choices he's going to have, I'm going to make sure he's prepared. He's going to know what hard work means. He's going to know how to communicate. I'm going to get him ready because I want him to enjoy the opportunities. Sorry, that was a very long-winded response. I hope that was...
It's a good, but I see arms going up over here. Go ahead.
Thank you. So my question is two parts. I have read that the NASCAR fan base is aging out. So if that is true, the second part of my question is, how do you go about attracting the millennials, the Gen Xers, the Gen Y, and getting them to become fans? How does that happen?
So great point. So think about our sport, and think about everyone in here growing up. When you would go home from school, you'd go in the backyard, grab a ball, throw it around, have some fun. How many of you had parents that would take you to a racetrack and put you in a go-kart and let you run around? So our sport has that biggest disconnect in terms of a young person getting dialed in unless their family really introduced them to the sport. Okay, so that's the first element. We talk about the patriarch and the changing fan base. So what I would tell you, what we've done, and I would put our sport, our athletes, our teams, our facilities up against anyone, is I think we're the most invested in the social digital space than anyone that's out there. And you look at the content that we generate, and you look at Jimmy Johnson with 2 million followers, a Dale Jr. with 2 million followers. You look at a Hendrick Motorsports. We have all of the entities within our sport rowing in the same direction on the social digital side. And I think the consumption of our sport in that space is phenomenal compared to everyone else. And so when we look at how many folks show up, how many people watch on TV, we have metrics just on the social digital side. And we actually have a fan engagement center up in Charlotte, North Carolina at the NASCAR headquarters that does a phenomenal job of pulling all that data together So for us, early on, a couple years ago, I mean, even Daytona right now has the largest social footprint of any track out there. We actually started changing our org chart to actually identify people with that skill set to be on our team versus the traditional marketing. And I think for us, it's being nimble to react. And that's for us where it's the play. If you're not in that space and in it with compelling, real content, not pushing out sponsored ads and things like that, you're not going to grow your fan base. And so and my 15-year-old, I'll use him as a good example. He consumes NASCAR and he knows what's going on through his mobile device. And because he just doesn't have the attention span to sit with me and watch it on TV, but he's consuming it in a way, so I know we've got his attention on that way. So we've got him as a fan that way. So now how do you prospect? How do you get them to the event? All those elements. For us too, again, you look at our properties, are they inviting for a young person to attend? Now, Daytona's great, we're in the right space. We need to start doing that with our other properties that are a little bit more aged and challenging. Phoenix is next on our list. So we're getting ready to look at some investment out there to change the way people experience that event. So it's an ongoing process. You're never going to finish in first. This is a continuous race because everything changes by, the decade, the year, the month, the day, the hour. But I am really excited about how nimble we've been to change our focus. And I'm not sure, I'd give probably soccer. I think it's been pretty nimble in their space as it relates to social and digital. But I think we're seeing some other sports are starting to really get after it, but they might be a little bit late to the party.
Do we have time for one more? Go ahead.
So mine was kind of similar because it has to deal with the way you sort of target consumers as far as the product. I love the story about bringing the cooler into the sport, and that's sort of like one of the things that makes NASCAR so unique. And so my question is, how do you gauge sort of what is best for the purity of the sport versus what the consumer needs and versus where you think the future goes? Because I know with Formula One, they recently downsized turbocharged engines, which don't sound as good, which might, and even in, stick and ball sports like football, the way they change tackling, it's good for the good of the sport, might change the purity of the game a little bit. So how do you, balance that as far as the consumer side versus the purity of the product?
It's another good question. And I'll make a little bit of a joke, which is, for that question, I'm glad I don't work for NASCAR. Because NASCAR, in the middle of all that, has to balance out competition, entertainment, the drivers, the teams, the cost, technology, and I'm sure they hear it from me too, because I'm a stakeholder. And so I have my hand up saying, hey, as a track, we need these things to be successful. And so I have to give NASCAR credit and the France family and Brian France specifically to try and balance out all those needs. And I think we've all found the funny places. If everyone is a little bit unhappy, it probably works. With some groups too happy, others not, it doesn't work. But I will tell you, it's very challenging right now. I think the biggest thing for everyone is competition versus entertainment. And how do you balance it out? So let's talk about what NASCAR did that I think has worked out extremely well. There might be some critics still of it, but creating a chase. Okay? Now think about that. NASCAR, season-long points, and the guy with the most points at the end of the year won the championship. So what they did is to create their own playoff, which is with 12 races to go, you qualify, top 16 make the chase, and after every 3 races you cut off 4 and 4 to get to the last race of the year with 4 individuals eligible for the championship. And the points are wiped clean at every stage to advance. Entertainment, competition, it's a playoff like you see in other stick and ball sports. It's a NASCAR style, but also it gives you that chance for those, what we call 9th inning heroic moments, right? Maybe when the underdog gets to do something that you didn't expect. Maybe when the wild card team makes it to the Super Bowl. So for me, that was pretty significant. Talk about core, talk about new, talk about TV, entertainment, and I give Brian France a lot of credit for putting it out there. And I think we've had some of the most compelling chase opportunities. When Kevin Harvick won his championship, he had to win, I believe he won 2 of the cutoff races just to advance to make it to the championship. So you see, we've now provided a stage for the athletes to raise their game when the spotlight is the brightest. And I think we as sports fans all want that. We want to see athletes perform at the highest level, And it's nice to create that format that does it. But the chase to me is a perfect example of competition, entertainment, and finding something that really worked for the industry. This the first year or two, it was a concern in terms of it's a change. No one's ever done this. But now as you see it really play out, it's provided some of the best racing that we've seen, again, because people are raising their game at the right time.
Thank you, and thank you so much for kind of being with us this evening.
I will share one last comment, and this is racing, and I think it applies to everyone here. Mario Andretti, very famous race car driver, great lineage, the only man to ever win an F1 World Championship, an Indy 500, and a Daytona 500. No one else will ever do that. He has a saying that I think is very relevant. In business, here at school, at the track, if things seem like they're under control, you're just not going fast enough. So for everyone out there, keep your foot on the floor. That's how you guarantee you come in first place.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. All right. Thank you so much.
That was excellent. And the nice part is